your own peril. Past the bolted door where impossible things may happen that the world never seen before.
What brings you to this game? I know you will not tell me. Like all the rest, you are silent. At their heart, all games are about power. Yet why power? The retaining of power. And most importantly, the use of power. Look over your shoulder, ready to run like a toilet bench from a smoking gun. I am the game and I make the rules. So run out, you can die like a fool. This thing I have created, I can hardly bear the sight of it now.
Welcome to Hand of Fate, a game that imitates life, as you can't win either without considerable resolve. However, unlike real life, Hand of Fate is a roguelike, which always makes me feel like,
oh man, does anyone ever win at this game?
You don't win, you just do a little better each time.
because it's a roguelike, it's one of those games I prefer to play as a filler or an appetizer, dealing a hand or two before starting something else I can sink my teeth into. Now, I'm not saying this is a game that can't be easily sessioned, because it can. However, after many sessions I got to the final boss and got stuck. At this point I realised that in order to get over the final hurdle I had to go back to go forward. This meant that I was left with the choice of either going back over the story I had already done or play the endless mode. I was faced with these choices because to beat the final boss I had to unlock more cards, which in turn would increase my chances of having a successful boss run. Unfortunately, being forced back like this kind of dwindled my interest in continuing. Now I get that roguelikes want to test your character by challenging you to overcome adversity, but in reality this means repeating the same thing over and over until you get over the wall. For me, this becomes frustrating when the odds are against you and your chances of success are based more on luck rather than skill. Hand of Fate being a card game teeters closer to the luck side of things, which at times is unbalanced. I'm sure you can imagine how this can become discouraging. As I mentioned, you progress the game by beating bosses and unlocking cards. To get the cards you must complete side quests. Herein lies the niggle I have. Because in order to complete some of these side quests you need to meet a requirement, be it gold or having a magical item for example. So first off you have to find the card in question along the path. When you do find it you have to have what it needs to progress the storyline. If you're lucky you will already have the thing, if not you need to try again on another run. Now it's not uncommon to miss the card you're looking for, or you may well find it but not have whatever the side quest requires. Again, you'll have to restart another run and hope that you get it. This has to be rinsed and repeated until things work in your favour. Naturally, for some cards it takes longer to do than others. Now one of the annoying things the game can do is play the card too early, so it's not actually possible to have the resource you need for it. Better still, you can get a card that gives you little to no indication of what to do, like this Kraken Cult one. I assume I have to get the successful cards, which I do. What am I supposed to do then? Do I need some other random thing? What is the random thing? I have no idea. Now another example of this is the Ghost of Sea card. Have a read.
I'm gonna go take a shit.
I kinda think that it wants me to complete the Kraken Cult card, but that, as I have shown, can't be done by choosing the success cards. I don't know. I really don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. So all I can do is just keep doing the game until I get really lucky and happen to find the thing I need when I come across these cards. The chances of that though... Hitting the wall and hoping to get lucky is the only thing I have to work with at this point. Breaking it down, completing some of the more difficult side quests comes down to luck. It's luck that you'll have what you need for the card, and it's luck that you will find the card when you have the resource for it. And others like Ghost of the Sea and the Kraken Cult fall into the category of who the hell knows. To mock me along the way is the Game Master, who can't pick a lane. It's really hard to tell if he's trying to help me out or not. But there have been many times that I'd call him out for rigging the game and just straight up cheating.
That is not how I work. I refuse to play in such a manner. Our game is fair, and you will be defeated fairly.
Yeah, well, what's this then? Look at how many guys are on this ship, and this big guy is a boss by the way, but despite hardly having a room to shape my tackle, I managed to kill them all. Let's see what happens on my next move. Two bosses, get. I'm sure that you can see how all of this can get a bit grating. But that's the nature of the game, and it's why I've reverted to playing a hand or two before throwing something else on, because that way it won't wear on my nerves. It's no biggie against the game, in fact these side quests extend the life of it, just be aware it can feel a bit like a drag rather than a benefit that works in the game's favour. Nevertheless, Hand of Sixes and Sevens is one of those games I would recommend you throw some gold at because it manages to do many things well, and it's unique. I've not come across another game that offers what Hand of Fate does. To sweeten the deal, it can be picked up for a bargain, as cheap as a few quid on a PS4 sale. I took a risk on Hand of Fate because on first preliminary checks it has 3 warning signs that immediately indicate that it should be avoided. Unity Engine, indie developer, Kickstarter. No, come back. Hand of Fate is aptly named because it was not fated to be another member of the overcrowded club of games made under similar circumstances that suck. So what is it? Well, it's a mashup of a tabletop deck building, dungeon crawling, roguelike card game, third person hack and slasher with a story. For those that can see the potential, I'm happy to inform you that these genres have been well blended by the Defiant team. The outcome is one of those roguelikes that offers enough to keep the player playing, and it's not one of those over the top roguelikes that constantly kills you. When you first start the game, it deliberately keeps the reasons as to why we're playing this card game to begin with shrouded in mystery. This allows the Game Master free rein to snipe judgments at our character.
Do you ever wonder if your fell hand and the damage it causes are worthwhile? Petty treasures retrieved from death and disaster.
A stroke of ingenious manipulation which works on multiple levels. Putting the player in a vulnerable position of unknowing automatically forces us to give some level of trust to the Game Master, even though it's clear that this Crypt Keeper is not a man that should be trusted. In light of that, we have to accept all the smack this fool talks about us because for all we know, we're the biggest arse going and we deserve it. That and we don't have the ability to reply to him. All I know is that we aren't sitting in this dingy basement playing cards with a creepy old man because our OBE is getting knocked up in the next room. So there are two game modes, story mode and endless mode. Endless mode is more of a necessity rather than a choice, as you will need to unlock better cards by completing side quests, as I mentioned before. Each mode requires you to get to the end of the dungeon by finding the escape card. Once found, you enter the next level of the dungeon. This is repeated until the last level, where you kill a boss and complete that dungeon. This is repeated until the last level, where you will kill a boss and complete the dungeon. In story mode, you have the option to build your deck. The first set to sort out is difficulty. At its most basic, it makes the game easier or harder, but a lot of these cards offer unique perks and drawbacks, which can be helpful in specific dungeons, as each dungeon comes with its own set of curses. The next deck is your equipment. This is pretty simple, replace the naff stuff with good stuff. The final deck is the encounters deck. This is the one you will spend most time shuffling, as they include the side stories. These cards are randomly dealt with the Dungeon Master's encounter cards. Like all the cards, they're placed face down on the table. Your piece moves like a king in chess in any direction for 1 square. When you move, the card is flipped over and played. You move along these cards, flipping them over as you move through the dungeon, trying to find the exit. Each move costs 1 food. What these encounter cards do is give you an opportunity to gain something that will help you on your journey in one way or another. But the main focus of the encounter set is the side stories, which are progressed through completing tasks. The reward for completing a task is a token. These tokens open when the player kills the final boss or dies. When either happens, the cards are unlocked. The rewards can be new equipment or more encounter cards. And to be honest, that is about the long and short of it. If you get stuck anywhere along the storyline, you have to go back and muddle through your encounter deck. If you're still stuck, then you'll have to do the endless mode to unlock more cards. The last thing to mention is the combat, and it's kind of basic, but it does enough to keep it entertaining with the variety of weapons and abilities. The enemies themselves are also varied enough for the story length. One minor issue is the size of the arenas you are put in. As you can see, it's hard to get a hit in because of the sheer number of enemies in the small area. Anyway, it's good enough to warrant me buying another copy for the PS4. Right, let's get out of this bloody dungeon and play something with Dex.
Death. We use the word so often. You run out of food and you die. You lose your health and you die. Yet, you're still here. We do not speak of the true death, the final oblivion. Only the death of the game, where your piece begins again and moves across the table. This game, like all games, touches on that true death, however, for a life must be lost, and lost for all time.